Hello, you're listening to Abstract AF. I'm Sneha Jaswal, and I'm going to be talking about The Sandman, the 2022 fantasy series on Netflix, created by Neil Gaiman, David S. Goyer, and Alan Heinberg. Now, season one is spread over 10 episodes, and I absolutely loved the first two, especially episode number one, which does a fantastic job of setting up the world of the Sandman. In folklore, Sandman is the god of dreams, kind of like the tooth fairy, who sprinkles some sand on your eyes to give you dreams, or worse, nightmares. Just like in the original comics, the series begins with the Sandman being accidentally kidnapped by a bunch of cultists. He's also known as Morpheus, and well, there are 100 of other nicknames, but we'll stick with Morpheus, who ends up being trapped on Earth for 100 years. The Sandman series retained its dark gothic tone from the comics in the Netflix adaptation and is just as grand in scale and complex in its themes. In Gaiman's universe, it's not just mortals who suffer from an existential crisis, but even the gods begin to question the purpose of their existence in the universe. Now, since this is at its core a fantasy series, you have a lot of special effects, and the CGI team has done a fantastic job of setting up Morpheus's realm, which is called the Dreaming. Depending on the scene, the tone and the mood of this series changes from a tragic Shakespearean play to a more modern dystopian horror story. Keeping up with current trends in time, obviously Gaiman and team have tweaked a lot of little details and big details to make the show a lot more inclusive and representational of many groups that are usually marginalized. So you have a lot of LGBTQIA representation and Black representation. For me, the series was consistently entertaining, except for episode 5, which was titled 24/7 and focused heavily on a character called John, who is in possession of the Dream Lord's ruby. I feel like the episode takes too much time over explaining just how disastrous the powers of the ruby can be, and yes, the character called John is played by veteran actor David Thewlis, who some might recognize from the Harry Potter movies. He played Professor Lupin, and I understand that he is a big name, a very talented actor, and they perhaps felt like he needed more screen space, but it really drags the pace of the show down. The only other problem that I did have with the series is the fact that the creators obviously have a lot of ideas. I mean, Neil Gaiman has this entire comic book series that is filled with so many plots and twists that they have to accommodate in this series, but it's only season one, and despite having a lot of these plot points, they don't flow seamlessly. So you have the first few episodes where the Dream Lord is captured by humans, and when he's finally free, he goes on a hunt for things that were stolen from him, and once that mission is accomplished, you have a random episode of him meeting one of his siblings, and then a different mission begins. And all these changes in the plot points felt a little jarring. They could have been done in a better manner. Otherwise, all the elements come together pretty well. Tom Sturridge, who plays the lead actor, the Sandman, reminded me a lot of Edward Cullen, the character played by Robert Pattinson in the Twilight series, but eventually you do come to associate him with the Dream Lord. Other actors who stood out best in this ensemble cast are Mason Alexander Park, who is pure perfection as the gender-fluid Desire, Boyd Holbrook as the evil nightmare-turned-serial killer, the Corinthian, and Gwendolyn Christie made a very interesting and imposing Lucifer. We're so used to men playing the ruler of hell, it takes a few seconds to get used to seeing her, but yeah, she does a fantastic job in her little cameo. If you haven't read the comics at all, I'm not sure how you'll feel about the Netflix series, but if you have read the comics, you will probably enjoy the show. I wanted to keep this review short and simple, so that's all from me on The Sandman. Talk to you the next time.